Good morning, DJ and PK. It's 97.5 The Zone. Welcome in on a Thursday morning. Got some football tonight, Rams and 49ers. Utah Hockey Club is playing tonight. They're back in action. They're out on the road facing Colorado. And we had BYU basketball last night. The Cougars, another easy win at the Marriott Center. They blow out Fresno State 95-67. Trevin Nell leads the way, 22 points, 10 boards. Agor Demon didn't play, and it didn't matter. They're up 17 at the half as a total blowout. Fresno State's bad. They're 3-7 this year. They've lost to a Pac-12 team. They've lost to a Mountain West team. They've lost to a WAC team. They've lost to a West Coast Conference team. They're 1-2 against the Big West. They did beat Long Beach State. Now they've lost to a Big 12 team as BYU just blew them out. Post-game reaction, Trevin Nell, 22 points, 10 rebounds. Here are Trevin and Richie Saunders after the game.
But Trevor, we got to ask you about your first career double-double, man. Just what was working for you so well, not just shooting it, but it looked like you had a pretty good eye for the glass.
You see this one?
Exactly.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, just credit to my teammates. They really just, guarded really, really well. I feel like we had a game plan going into this. And then shout out to Richie. He got me two quick ones with the last second halftime tip out of me, and then my patent stats to the quick little floater. So, but yeah, just credit to my teammates.
Floater was nice though.
It was a fun little thing, and it's fun to have guys on the bench be super excited for something like that. So this team is really special, just with how excited we get over just things like that.
Richard, what impressed you about the bounce back performance after losing at Providence?
Yeah.
Coming here and beating Fresno State?
Those a big gut check, right? We really, the last few days in practice, it was just really specific. And it was really impressive to see us for most of the game of just really focusing on our three defensive things of really where we pick up the ball and where we are in our help defense and focusing on the low man under the basket. It was cool just to see us to really take that and to apply it. Because it's one thing to practice it, but to take it onto the court in front of everybody, it's another thing.
Richie, I got to ask if you were playing volleyball this summer. You seem to be tipping the ball and spots like you're taking.
Richie has an eye for the ball.
Yeah, I don't know where that came from.
from.
I think last year I was guarding a lot bigger people, and so a lot of times I was too busy taking elbows to the head. But now, it's I don't know where it comes from, but I'm just glad Trevor
works out
for that
perfect.
one.
Kevin, what were the practices like the last couple of days after the Providence loss? Coach described it one way. Let's see how you describe it.
How do you describe them? No, I was just gonna say they're really competitive. It felt like a summer practice. We were really getting after it, especially Friday, Saturday, Monday. Those practices were really, really intense. We even kind of simulated a game on Saturday with a couple, 20-minute scrimmages and stuff like that. But yeah, super competitive. I felt like we kind of found that edge again. And then it's a long time. 8 days is a long time to sit on a loss like that against Providence. Credit to them, they're a great team, but we did not play the way we wanted. And so to sit on that, I think really helped, spark some energy, spark a little fire under us. And that fueled us through practice and then fueled us today. So.
Who's sitting at 3? What was your reaction to that?
He's Steph. He watches Steph Curry all the time.
I think I cried.
I mean, I saw him wind up, and I was gonna go crash the glass, but I was like, no, he wants to
get back on defense.
Get back on defense. But Foose he's amazing. He's one of the most genuine dudes. And I'm just happy that all of his hard work is really paying off, and he can shoot it too, and so he gets his elbow under it, and it looks really pretty. So credit to him and credit to Steph to showing him how to shoot on YouTube.
Can you guys give us maybe your ideas about BYU signing AJ this week? How it impacts you? And we'll play till next year. What do you guys think?
No, I think especially for the staff, that's a big deal. First off, I think I'm right there with him of for where he wants to be in his career. There's no better place. It's just everything we do here it's professional. It's the NBA. But it's a really big deal. Such a historic thing. A big made history for this school. and just I'm excited to hopefully get on the court with him next year. And I think that's like one piece that can like really get the scene like what we've built, and to get to build on that, or however you want to say that.
We only had pressure knowing he was right behind the bench and he was going to be here tonight.
No, I mean
he was like throwing up before the game.
No, AJ's a good dude. I was laughing because for some reason he was not in the seat when I looked over. It was like towards the end of the game, and I was like, I immediately thought of his little interview where he left during the Alabama game, and so I was like, oh, he pulled another AJ. But yeah, he's a special kid. Like Richie said, just echo what he said. Like it's a really big get for us, and kind of what Coach Young said. Also, it's not hypothetical. Like we're here building, players to go in the NBA. We have an NBA staff, nutrition, NBA, weightlifting, NBA, like go down the line. And so I think this is just another step. And I like the thing, it's not what if, it's what is. So I think that's just super cool, and I think that's kind of our MO right now.
Last question. Without having Jaeger out there tonight, how does that change the way you guys play and kind of attack both sides?
Yeah.
How does it?
Yeah, Ye, like, he's also a special kid. Like, he is somebody that can really spread the floor for us. It's probably why I got more rebounds, because he wasn't there. He's a special kid. He really can pass the ball. He can shoot. He can dribble. He's 6'9". He's a point guard first. He's a pass first guy. And so it was a little difficult, but, I've been playing with Richie for 3 years now, Dallin for 3 years, Foose for 3 years. So we already built something, like Richie said. So losing him was like a step back, but also we've already built something. So it was kind of just next guy up kind of mentality.
Yeah, and that's what it is. Like, it's a team. Stuff like that happens. It sucks. But, like, we got a team.
I think it's actually one more question.
Wow, Tyson, that's generous.
Tyson would like to know what you're getting from your B for tomorrow.
Wifey's birthday tomorrow. So I actually got her a massage, so she'll be able to go get a massage.
You talking about the horse? Oh, so we do not say that?
But yeah, so we'll see what happens tomorrow. We'll be all over social media, so stay tuned.
There's Trevin Nell and Richie Saunders. Now here's the head coach, Kevin Young. His team's 7-2. They've just landed A.J. Dybantsa as a top recruit. He was at the game. We'll hear from him in a second. His high school team is playing in a tournament. Lehigh's got a game Saturday night at 6 o'clock. Here is Kevin Young, the Cougars head coach. They're now 7-2 after blowing out Fresno State 95-67.
Outside of the stretch there where they obviously started chipping away and, turned us over, even before they picked up the pressure, I thought our defense took a bit of a lapse, and that was not something that we were too happy with. But outside of that stretch, I thought defensively we were really good. They made some threes, but, we talked a lot about threes that we're okay giving up. Some of the ones they hit, we were okay giving up. I thought just the compactness of our defense was where we wanted it tonight, and that was something that was a major point of emphasis coming into the game.
Your evaluation of Trevin Nell's first career double-double.
I didn't even know he had a double-double. I'm still tripping on the layups that he made, to be honest with you. No, what he had 10 boards. Wow. Okay. Trev's awesome, man. He does everything right. He's one of our captains. He's a guy who's, knows what we want to do and does it at a high level out there. So just happy for any success that he has. So really that's the first career double-double. Wow. We got to frame this stat sheet for him then for sure.
Dallin had 10 points in the second half. From your vantage point, did it feel like he was sort of finding his way in that second half a little bit more than the first half?
I thought he just, was opportunistic with his looks. I thought we actually ran some pretty good offense tonight that I thought helped him put him into some better positions. That was something that after that Providence game that I had to, look myself in the mirror pretty heavily. And am I putting, really him and Jaeger, who are the heads of the snake in terms of handling pressure, am I putting them in enough position to succeed? And the resounding answer was no. And so we did a lot of different things to try to free them up in different kinds of ways. I have to look at the film to see exactly how he got some of those looks, but we're just happy with the way, he was able to, stay composed and find ways to score the basketball.
Are you pretty much expecting a lot of full court pressure or a lot of picking you guys up even at half court? this year, and is that a concern, or do you feel like you handled it okay?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends. You know, some games I think we've handled it extremely well. Other games, you know, in stretches we haven't. Even tonight, you know, there were stretches where we turned it over. Then there were stretches where, you know, it's do or die for them. They either give up a dunk or a three, or they turn us over, right? And so I think if we can just be a little bit more sound. I mean, we have enough shooting and enough guys at the rim that I think can put a lot of fear in people if they try to pick us up. Not just full court, but when you start doing, you know, traps at half court and at three-quarter court with the amount of shooting that we have, that's a dangerous thing to do. So I think we'll do enough to allow, you know, scare teams into not doing it the whole game.
What is the prognosis on Yegor? Will he play Saturday? Or?
No, he's going to be out for a week and a half. We'll reevaluate. He's got a knee contusion.
Are you going to kind of treat it like Dallin, where when he's back, he's going to be 100%? Like, do you want to be a little bit more cautious at this point in the season with him?
Yes.
How do you feel like the team, you know, played without his presence tonight?
Played well. You know, I thought we tonight was the first night. You know, I thought where we had, you know, more than one shooter, you know, clicking on all cylinders. You know, ironically, I thought that was one of Cannon's best games, and he was only 1 of 7 from 3. You know, so if he has a normal night from 3, that's even higher. But no, I just thought the ball was popping out there. I mean, you know, like I said, we're a team where if you make a mistake, we can really make you pay. And, you know, tonight we were able to do that, you know, more than we weren't, which I loved, you know. Without Yegor, you know, he's been the driver of a lot of those threes in terms of creating, but tonight it was everybody.
What kind of an extra emphasis does that put on Dallin Hall's role without Yegor as, like you mentioned, kind of that secondary ball handler?
I just think for him, and I said this to someone else pregame, I think he's still kind of getting his sea legs under him from being out. You know, it's hard to miss as much time as he did and then come back and just pick up where you left off. And so I think this is a big, important stretch for him to kind of get his legs under him a little bit more, get his confidence back up. I think tonight was a step in that direction for him.
What did you see from the team this past week, and maybe practices coming back from that loss last week, and maybe their focus, and was that kind of maybe like a humbling moment, I guess, their preparation for this game?
I thought they handled it extremely well, and to be honest, and I told the players this, you know, I'm not a guy that's going to put things on the players all the time. Like, I got to look, me and my staff have to look ourselves in the mirror. Are we doing the right things? And so I came in very adamant about what we wanted to get better at, and we had 2 very honestly ugly practices, which is exactly what we needed, and we kind of put the flag in the ground on what we wanted to be about defensively, especially. And then once we kind of made that declaration, I thought the guys' attention to detail, a competitive spirit to that specific thing was really good. So I thought it was honestly probably one of the most important stretches of our year to date. And I thought the guys handled it well.
I felt like Foose was impactful in that first half, and it was kind of even towards the 10-minute mark in that first half. What did you make of his impact in his performance?
I mean, I think something good's going to happen every time I put Foose in the game. You know, he's a guy I trust immensely. You know, he didn't score it as much as he normally does, but he had, 10 defensive rebounds. But he's more than that. I mean, he's more of an offensive hub for us. You know, you talk about some of the pressure. You know, tonight we did a lot more stuff where we were hitting him in the kind of that trail spot. First half we had several backdoor cuts. He makes nice passes there. So he's just a guy that, like I said, I have a lot of trust in, and we try to use him all over the floor because of it.
So looking ahead a little bit, you're going to play Wyoming in the Delta Center. It's kind of a tradition for BYU. Is that something that you are okay with and want to continue a game a year up there?
Yeah, I think it's cool. Anytime our guys can be around anything that is NBA centric, I'm all for it. I think it's a good experience for those guys to play in a venue like that and you know, have that experience as a college player. I think it's pretty cool.
Speaking of which, do you have a relationship with Will Hardy, the Jazz coach, or obviously he was here tonight?
Yeah, no, I know Will very well. You know, we both kind of grew up in him more than me, but in the Spurs tree. Brett Brown, who I worked for in Philly, was with Will as a youngster when he was in San Antonio, and then Monty Williams and the whole thing. Like, the Spurs tree is massive. I'm just like a small little stepchild of it, but I know Will through that. and he's been great since I've gotten here. We've connected quite a bit, actually, and that was really cool that they were there tonight.
2 more questions. That halftime moment for AJ, I mean, I don't know if you saw because you were obviously in the locker room, but it's been well documented. AJ was impressed with the NBA approach that you have with this program. But how much did you talk to him about like Cougar fans and just kind of the environment that what BYU provides and the platform that this place provides?
Quite a bit. Yeah, we talked about it quite a bit. I mean, and I said this the other day when we did the call, I believe, but what I'm learning in recruiting is it's not, like I said the other day, it's not one singular event, right? It's not one visit, one call, one text, one game you go to. It's just everything collectively. I think we did our staff, everyone at BYU, there's so many people that are involved in putting things together to kind of showcase what this place is about. And we went top to bottom on showing him, and every recruit, quite frankly, but obviously he's kind of unique with his kind of status, I guess you could say, but what we can do to help him, grow his brand, so to speak, with all the BYU TV and everything that there is, and then the fan support and the network and the alumni. I mean, there's just so many things that make this place unique, and it's just really cool that I think the world is going to be getting a bigger taste of it now because of a guy like his stature that chose to come here because of a lot of that stuff.
Last question. You're somewhere between a third and a fourth of the way through the season. What do you think your team has done well up to this point, and what are some things that you still think they need to work on?
Yeah, I think identity offensively is something that I'm happy with for the most part. I think the ball moves when you watch our team play. I think we at least try to execute our stuff. The rebounding has been a strong suit of ours so far this year on both ends of the floor, which is something that we talked about from the second I got here. I think defensively, I think we're doing things that are positive, but there's plenty of room to grow. But I think, our team defensive concepts are starting to come together. And I'd say those are the things that have stood out to this point.
There's the head coach, Kevin Young. Now here's the star recruit, AJ Dybantsa, the #1 recruit in the country, committed to BYU. And he met with the media and spoke very briefly.
AJ, what was that like when you were introduced to the crowd, and what was the feeling like when it happened tonight?
It was good. Just like a family atmosphere, like I said. So, it was just good that, everybody, was supporting, just, caring and loving.
How does it feel to have your commitment public and kind of closing the chapter on all the craziness of the recruiting?
Better than private. I was private for like a week. So, just, letting the world know, it just feels way better, stress-free.
Was it difficult to not let it be known, or was it to not tell many people and just kind of keep that private?
Nah, I keep everything private. It's not that hard.
What you had pillars in your recruitment. Can you describe how BYU checked off those pillars in deciding on BYU?
The first one was like family. Clearly y'all seen it when I was announced. Like a non-sugarcoating coach. I like what Kev was doing. A development program. It's an all NBA staff and a winning program, and I think they're going to go far this year.
We have 2 more questions. What can BYU fans expect to see from you next October?
There's a lot of excitement. We're going to play to win, but a lot of excitement.
What's the timeline for when you do plan to get settled in here? As far as, is it in the summer? What's kind of the timeline when you're going to get here?
Yeah, probably the summer.
There is AJ Dybantsa, #1 recruit in the country, headed to BYU. We're going to take a break. When we come back, a little controversy in New Mexico. The Utes and the Aggies have stripped down the New Mexico football program, taking the head coach, the offensive coordinator, the starting quarterback, maybe more players, maybe more assistant coaches still to come. We'll see how that plays out. Rick Wright, not happy. Longtime writer, Hall of Famer. He's chronicled New Mexico sports for more than 50 years. He remembers PK and Rick Majerus and their legendary battles. Rick Wright, next with PK and I. DJ PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. We're joined now by Rick Wright, Hall of Famer when it comes to media and writing in New Mexico. More than half a century covering the Lobos and all the big sports news in the state of New Mexico. Rick, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. And I understand that in addition to some of the accolades there's more, but you also hung out with Patrick Kinahan of the Salt Lake Tribune at times.
Yes, I did. I remember it well. Remember his tortured relationship with Rick Majerus and all that good stuff.
Yes, that could fill a few volumes unto itself.
You could write 2 or 3 books on that, I'm sure.
In the pit, standing where there was the bottom of the L as you walk up the tunnel, and they lost. He comes out of the little room that was next to the locker room. He sees me standing there. You can't stand there. Get out of there. And I go over to Greg Remington, Sports Information. Hey, is it okay if I stand there? Yep. I went back and stood there.
May he rest in peace.
Yes. Now, I've known you for many years, and I got to say that this piece that you wrote on Bronco was biting. And now you took it wasn't exclusively on Bronco. You spent the top half of it going after him, and then the second half. And you're a New Mexico guy through and through, native, graduated there. Obviously, have lived there many, many years. And I read a little piece of it. And I'll do it again. You're of the LDS faith. There's a significant LDS presence right here in Albuquerque, as I'm sure you know. And if your faith and family is so important to you, why'd you leave BYU for Virginia in 2016? So what is the mood in terms of Bronco taking off after having a nice season in his first season, in his only season?
Well, there's a lot of anger. I mean, in that column, the first portion of it, I let myself be that New Mexico native and UNM graduate who allowed myself to feel angry and abandoned. And then I turned around and became the sports journalist and amateur historian that I am, and said, what did we expect? It's Lobo football. This is what happens. And went on to say, I believe 2 things. I believe that Bronco would have taken that job anytime it came open, whether it was after 1 year at New Mexico, after 10, and B, family truly is important to him. I knew his mother still lived in Alpine. I didn't know all 3 of his sons were living in Provo. So, I mean, I understand that's important to him. I also believe that for that 1 year, he was totally engaged in his job at the University of New Mexico, because that's Bronco Mendenhall. So I'm not angry about it. Tell you what, you may remember Greg Archuleta, who's the UNM football beat writer. Yeah. All that time. We published a guest column of his that he originally put on Facebook, and he really, really goes after Bronco, calls him Benedict Bronco. and I think that is the prevailing feeling right now. When he comes back, as we discovered yesterday, he'll come back with Utah State. He'll come back to Albuquerque with Utah State next fall. Yeah, and he will be greeted by a chorus of boos. I mean, it's not going to be enclosed in the pit like Steve Alford has experienced at Nevada, but it'll be loud, and probably attendance will probably double for that game, simply for the opportunity to boo Bronco.
Is part of the frustration, obviously part of the frustration is this immediate situation, is part of the frustration the bigger landscape of college athletics, where the best coaches and the best players are going to be hired away? So even if the Lobos go out and hit another home run with a quarterback, with an offensive coordinator, with a head coach, I mean, they're all gone. And it's just going to happen again. Traditionally coaches do not stay. They either get fired or they move on if they have some success here. And now we're dealing with the same thing with players, which never really happened before. So yeah, I mean, what Bronco began here in the 1 year is totally gone. I mean, Devin Dampier, the all-conference quarterback, is gone. The second-team all-conference wide receiver, a local kid, is gone. Luke Weissong. Eli Sanders, the running back, the second-team all-conference, is gone. I guess Dampier is about to announce where he's going, and the smart money is on Utah, where Jason Beck, Broncos' coordinator here, has gone. So it's whoever takes the job will be greeted by a desolated landscape, and it'll be. I mean, Bronco was a total rebuild. This is a beyond total rebuild for whoever takes the job.
Tell us about Jason Beck, your observation of him. Now, he was just there a short time, and now we got a double connection because he's going to Utah. Obviously, Bronco's going up to Logan. But what did you see as far as Jason Beck running an offense, and what can Ute fans expect?
Well, it's everything he achieves is just so hooked in with the quarterback, Dampier, who was just a dynamic player, just a tremendous talent. They finished. I think UNM finished fourth in total offense in FBS. Obviously, the play calling had a lot to do with it. Putting the right people in the right places had a lot to do with it. Jason Beck got a lot of compliments from people down here, people who really know football. I think he'll do very well at Utah. And if Dampier joins him at Utah, that's a big time plus, because the kid is just amazing. He truly is. So if that happens, look for good things from the Utah offense.
You mentioned, you don't doubt Bronco's loyalty to, the family and his kids are here, and his mom and all that. But should Aggie fans worry that if Bronco bolted on New Mexico, he would bolt on Utah State, or you think that that's not really in play?
I don't think it is. I don't think it's in play, and unless his family bolts, which his kids are still young. They could go anywhere, but and his mom's 93. But clearly Utah means a lot to him. It's his birthplace. It's where his family is. I don't think and he's pulling down $2 million a year to start. And I wrote in my column, if he says it's about the money, I actually will believe him, because I think that's who he is. Not that he's allergic to money or anything like that. But no, I don't think the people at Utah State have to worry about that, and certainly not in the near future. Was it 6 years he signed for? Was it 6?
Yeah, I think it was 6.
I think he'll be here I think he will be there for 6. I truly do.
Yeah, that would probably be the most likely be towards the end of it. I think he's 58 years old, so this could be his last stop, and
it could.
There's no doubt that he'll do a good job. I'm torn. I had a conversation with a former Utah player, and we were going back and forth. And he was furious about Bronco leaving after one season, and I'm bringing him all
the principle of the thing.
Yeah, the principle. Yeah, exactly. And we're talking about it. If he was 2-10, did they look to replace him? And so who knows? And I think the bottom line here is this has been happening, and at least now, and I don't even know if it's a good thing, but the players can leave, and really. Yeah. This sucks 100% for the Lobos, because it decimates their program. But in the end, what are you going to do?
Yeah, everything that has happened in college sports, that NCAA regulations, has worked for the haves and against the have-nots. And UNM is traditionally a have-not ever since 1965, when football went to two-platoon college football. And it just gets worse and worse, and the portal and the NIL make it that much worse, because it's just so hard for New Mexico or New Mexico State to compete.
Is the one silver lining in all of this what's happening with the Mountain West? Because although it's not good, and I grew up rooting for San Diego State, so I've followed it even when Utah and BYU have left, the schools that are leaving tend to have more money, and is New Mexico in conference play going to be on a more level playing field?
Yeah, probably so. I mean, it's. I remember, I cover boxing, and I remember a trainer talking about a big fight coming up, and it's very competitive in its mediocrity, and that in a way that's kind of what we're seeing, which is unfortunate. But yeah, from that standpoint, if Fernando Lowe, the new AD, makes a good hire. And someone who can, with a name, hopefully, who can maybe bring people in the portal to replace the many who have left. Who knows? They could be competitive in the new Mountain West, but it's a diminished conference for sure.
I saw the Lobos play several times this year. Obviously, Utah State. I saw them play Arizona. I saw them play Washington State. And I was obviously, as you said, with Dampier, just thoroughly impressed. Very, very dynamic, electric. I mean, it was possible to take it to the house on every single play through a number of ways and means he could get the job done. So I'm excited if he comes here to Utah, and because they need a jolt offensively, as we all know. How about the other two players? Because I thought they were really good too. Do you have any insight on where they may be going?
Eli Sanders, the running back, he posted that he had an offer from Michigan State. Who else is? I don't know if Jason Beck is going after him or not. But Wysong, I don't know. I don't think he's going to be nearly as in demand as Dampier, and probably not as in demand as Sanders either. He could easily wind up somewhere else in the Mountain West, in the American, something along those lines. But I don't think any Group of Four school is going to be that interested. I could be wrong, but that's what I think.
Well, Rick, we appreciate a few minutes this morning. Thanks for joining us and talking a little Lobo football and a little Bronco Mendenhall.
Oh, thank you. Nice talking to you guys.
There is Rick Wright, DJ and PK, proudly presented by our title sponsor, Black Desert Resort, Utah's premier golf resort. A reminder to join JJ and Alex at the Shops at Southtown Friday from 3 to 6. Find the perfect gift this holiday season at the Shops at Southtown. We're going to take a break. When we come back, Tim LaComb on all the changes in college hoops. How in the world did BYU get A.J. Dybantsa? Was it money? Of course. But it wasn't just money, and Tim will explain next. DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. It is time to welcome Tim LaComb back to the show, Utah Jazz radio analyst, who's on Rick Majerus' staff at Utah, and assistant coach for Dave Rose at BYU. Tim, good morning.
And all around, just tremendous human being. Ladies and gentlemen, Tim LaComb.
I left out rock and roll star.
Well, some are jealous of it, so I see. I understand.
Oh, you are my rock and roll fantasy.
Well, thank you, Mr. Paul Rogers. I appreciate it. How are we doing today, guys? How is your morning?
It's good. Maybe not as good as A.J. Dybantsa's morning, but it's good nonetheless.
Yeah, I would say, he and BYU made quite a splash yesterday nationwide.
Do you believe the reporting around this? There are multiple stories out there, people citing sources, conversations, people close to them, all that kind of stuff. $7 million in NIL. We're getting a little pushback on that. Not everyone's buying that. Do you think that number is realistic? Because we have had coaches tell us, hey, you got to be careful with this stuff. The numbers get inflated. You got a budget. You can't bite on this. You got to do your research and figure out what someone's really getting so you just don't spend money you don't have to spend.
Well, I think the truth's probably somewhere in the middle. I think there are factors that, teams that lose out, maybe those numbers get inflated and try to make themselves look more sane. And then on the other end of it, there are other factors like, Red Bull, Nike, people that are able to kind of join the package, quote unquote. So I've always heard with him, it was around 4, as far as like the actual payment to him. So I don't know beyond, I don't know the ins and outs. But I do know in these instances, there's more than just BYU to consider. There's other entities that would probably put everything together.
The thing that impresses me about Kevin Young, we'll find out how good of a coach he is on the floor in the weeks and months and years to come, so be it at that point. But I like his vision. He came in thinking, I'm going to go after the top talent, and he started recruiting this kid right off the bat. You were on the front line of recruiting. How did you guys come to identify kids? Now, obviously, the LDS kid speaks for itself, and if he's good enough, you go after him. We get all that. But I'm wondering, outside of the traditional BYU basketball player, which he seems to really go after hard and embrace, how did you guys handle it in terms of knowing, should we do it? Do we spend money on it, time, effort, all that type of stuff?
Well, that's a great question, and I think, the game's changed so much, and obviously Kevin came in here with this plan, and then he's executed. This wasn't like most press conferences where a guy gets up there and just regurgitates a bunch of nonsense.
Yeah.
But I will say that when Kevin said that in the press conference, I was there and I was kind of looking around and people were taken back by it, and I think, the full piece of this is then, the school's got to be all in on it. And I think with Kevin Young, there was a trust that he would handle that with real respect. He's still got to go out and get guys that want to come and fit here. The money is certainly an enormous piece. I mean, I like to think back, if I had a bag of a couple $1 million, I would like to think I'd been more effective. but at the same time, the key to this is the NBA lineage, the NBA training, which is part of the whole vision. With a respectable guy who's been in that league and coached those guys, I mean, to me, it's the perfect approach. And you can't have one without the other. A lot of people are just saying, well, they just went and bought a guy. Well, everybody's got money now. See, what used to happen, and I don't know if many people are privy to this, but most every other school was paying people under the table, believe it or not.
I do believe it.
It existed. And back in the day, that was just an area we did not, BYU was not into. We weren't going to go down that road. So getting players was vastly different. We started and led with the best players in the country that wanted to come here, that were mostly guys that knew about BYU, whether they're LDS or had family that were, or parents that played here, any kind of connection. And then from there, branched out, spoke to a ton of people. Everybody was clamoring at that point to go get European guys. Well, here's the reveal. Most guys that came over here from foreign countries were getting paid a lot of money. And guys that probably weren't as good. So that's Paul Harvey. Now you know the rest of the story.
Nice. The rest of the story.
Page 2.
I didn't have any paper to crinkle.
Nice. I am curious with the money, especially when you mention like Red Bull and you mention Nike. I totally get that companies like that would kick into the NIL bucket, right? And they put some money in. But I think they would do it for any school because their angle is working on, hey, this player is going to be really good and we're going to need him down the line. So whether he goes to Kansas or North Carolina or Alabama or BYU or wherever else, doesn't really matter to us. What matters to us is we're going to build that relationship now, because when he's 20, 25, 30, he could be selling a lot of product, whatever that product is. Red Bull drinks, Nike shoes, whatever it is. So how important is it to have Kevin Durant make a phone call and say, this is the guy you want to play for? Because once the money's about the same, and I guess each school ponies up whatever with their collective, but then the national money comes in on top of it, how important it is a tiebreaker, because you're not going to go somewhere for $100,000 if you can go somewhere else for $3 or $4 million.
No, I think that's spot on. I think there's a there's a part of this where those types of entities are going to kind of wait and see where the interest is. But as far as BYU goes, yeah, I mean, the money's one thing, and then the other part is, it's what we used to do, the sales pitch, and the sales pitch at BYU is, pretty dialed in right now. It's, go get the most elite player you can, tell them, hey, we're going to train you for 9 months to become what you need to become, and learn the things, the vocabulary, the verbiage, the way things are talked about in the NBA. You're going to learn that here. In effect, it's kind of like going to play for G League Ignite or something like that, because there is so much NBA experience on that bench. Not just Kevin, but everybody else. Everybody's got some experience in that. So that's going to be the thing that kind of becomes the closing piece, is what's the experience going to be like, and how can you truly prepare me? In the past, it was just go get blue chip guys and round them up like Calipari and put them all out there and just let them play, and, they'll figure it out. Kevin's dialed that in more, and, there's a lot of nuance to the NBA, and I think that's where he's going to excel.
For so long, we heard that the honor code was an impediment. How come it no longer is?
I don't have great coverage of that anymore. I sense, just from what I see, that there's some things that have been relaxed. Obviously, from when I was there, if you had, if one of our guys had facial hair, we'd get 100 emails the next day about it, that how dare you think your athletes are above the honor code. And that is true. That did happen.
I know it did.
So now, I'm watching these football guys, they look like Thor or Captain Caveman. And I'm just wondering, it's totally different. So I've never really checked into it. I don't know. But I would think that there have been some under the, wink, wink, nod, nod, I don't know, adjustments perhaps that we're just not going, it's not going to be, guys are going to agree to it, but we're not going to be Gestapo about it.
Because I was surprised when I saw one of the guys smoking on the bench last year.
I know, it was, it took me back to Red Auerbach. And it was a big old cigar.
Cuban cigars.
MJ when he wins a title.
BYU wins their 25th.
You had to be careful with the dude Pope, hung around with. Those cigar smoking guys.
Hey, I got a kid for you.
Got a kid for you down here in Jersey.
While the focus is on getting an elite player, and you brought up Kentucky because obviously they got a lot of elite guys, but you go to Carolina or to Duke. BYU fans don't just want elite players. They want elite players because they think they're going to lead to Sweet 16s, Elite 8s, Final Fours. How do you build the whole roster while you're bringing through elite one-and-dones, assuming that they've got 2 in a row here in Kevin Young's first 2 years?
I think that's what's beautiful about BYU is that's pretty much built in. You look at what Richie Saunders does on a nightly basis. It's a homegrown kid. We offered him in the 9th grade. I think we were his first or second offer. He was pretty down, off the radar, wasn't on a big AAU team. Played at Riverton. And went and watched him the first time and just blown away by his energy. And, we offered him. And it was such a faux pas because all of the big AAU clubs in town, were all bent that we offered a non-AAU guy. But he was that good. And my point is, I think those guys that are really solid, think Lee Camard, think Travis Hansen, and Tyler Hawes, Kyle Collinsworth through the years. That is who beat Devin Durant. That is the backbone of BYU. And then it's always been try to go get a couple of dudes, and those dudes were different. But, a guy like Keeney Young, a guy like Mike Lloyd, that just come in, really kind of round out that group. A guy like Chase Fisher was one of those guys, Matt Carlino, that didn't have a ton of tie to BYU, but they came here. They could do this thing. They were accepted, and then it led to good things. So now I think you've just got that backbone. You continue to build to it. Like they just got Chamberlain Burgess, a kid who was very highly ranked, but a local kid with ties to BYU. You get your roster solidified with that, and then these guys come in and just, I do think those things. I think that is the only thing that's kept BYU from winning more tournament games is we had really good players. We just didn't have a crazy amount of depth. And our top end was, that was where other teams kind of had. When we went and played Gonzaga in the Kennel, and, every BYU fan in the world expected us to win, and they were starting 4 NBA guys, that was a little tough. And so when we did win a couple of those, it was monumental. But I think you couple all of that together, and I think you can do a lot of things in basketball in the NCAA, from this place right here.
Yeah, you can now, especially, too, when you think about it, how important is it the Big 12 affiliation, whether they be foreign or domestic here, and these guys get to test themselves against this level?
Yeah, it's awesome. And, you know, the other great part is they're now aligned in the Big 12 Conference, which is arguably one of the best in the nation. So these guys don't have, you know, back in the day, hey, we're not going to pay you any money. Will you please sign this honor code? And we're in the WCC. That was the trifecta, you know. Now it's like we got boatloads of money. You know, we have facilities thanks to Dave Rose. Arena. We have facilities thanks to Dave Rose, and we have the ability now to play in the Big 12. And so, I mean, it's a great. I think the pitch is awesome.
Yeah, it's never been better. That's for sure.
And the reason I say the Dave Rose thing is, if people don't know, when Coach, you know, we went to Sweet 16 in 2010. He got approached and had 2 job offers. Could have gone to Oklahoma and NC State. And instead of taking, you know, double the money or more than double the money, to him it was about leaving a legacy here. And so he went to the president then, Cecil Samuelson, and said, I will stay here. And, you know, you're going to pay me all this crazy money, but I will stay here if you commit to build a facility for basketball. And then he, for the next, you know, year and a half, battling, you know, all the health stuff he did, he went out personally and got people to pitch money. It was so that whole thing happened because of him.
And that goes right to the question of when and how did the mentality change at BYU? Because that story about the basketball facility, there's a story about Lavelle standing up at a staff meeting and talking about facilities when a lot of coaches wanted to say something, but he was the one who had the stature to do it, and they got the indoor practice facility, which is primarily for football, but it's used by other sports teams too. And so it was so hard to get those things done, and it required so much. And that's why you shared that story right there, because you know it requires a lot to suddenly these massive NIL deals. And I get all the money isn't local. Certainly all the money isn't local. But it is still a major shift. When and how did that happen? Can you put your finger on it?
I think it happened for, you know, obviously the Big 12, you know, if you don't put your best foot forward, you can be embarrassed. You know, it's a really good league in both basketball and football. And so I think, you know, raising to that level obviously requires. And then secondly, you know, the budget increase. You know, the money kicked up big time. The payout from the Big 12. And then I think the third piece is all of the underground happenings, the guys getting paid, you know, go play college basketball. That all now comes above board. And so now that's actually something, it's a line item instead of something that you're trying to hide in a drawer. And so all of those things combined, and now you've got an atmosphere that BYU can really excel. The money's above the board. The budget, you know, for athletics is now not just a shoestring. It's actually quite massive. And you can actually start paying coaches, which thank God they're doing that now. So it's good, like, you know, but, you know, let's not forget where it came from.
Tim, we appreciate the time and the perspective. You had no idea that college basketball was going to evolve like this over 30 years. You'd be on the radio telling us these stories, but we're glad you came on and shared with us.
Well, it's been fun, and I sure value my relationship to you guys. So thank you.
Tim LaComb, Utah Jazz radio analyst, back at it Friday night, the Jazz and the Suns. When we come back, what is trending? The headlines are next.